Gnome blessings to you, dear listeners, and welcome back to Gnome Talk. This is your Gnomean Elder, and today we are diving into a question so big that it's probably been around since somebody first tried to explain why the sun disappears every night. What is religion? In this episode, we're going to explore the essence of religion and what makes a faith system like the Church of Gnome not just a quirky collection of gnome jokes and rituals, but a meaningful spiritual philosophy. We'll also tackle the murky waters of what separates a religion from a cult. Because let's face it, nobody wants to accidentally find themselves in the mandatory robe section of a spiritual practice. And because we are gluttons for existential punishment, we will even venture into the unexpected, such as how politics, ideologies, and even science can sneakily fill the role of religion in people's lives. Just in case you needed more controversial dinner conversations to have with the family. But don't worry, I'm not going to leave you drowning in existential, deep-end philosophical musings. I'll try to keep it somewhat lighthearted throughout the way as well. So grab your gnome hat, or if you forgot it, just make one with your hands. Let's get started. After all, the path to enlightenment isn't paved with seriousness alone. Sometimes it's lined with tiny garden statues that remind us to live a little. Kind of like these gnomes that I've made, that you can learn more about at churchofgnome.org. Anyways, what is religion? Is it a shared path to meaning, a bridge to the divine, or simply humanity's way of asking why, and sometimes answering with, because we said so? So let's dig in. When we ask what defines a religion, we're venturing into a realm of human thought that touches every culture and time period. It's a question that both unites and divides us. It can be a spark of awe and controversy all in the same breath. It's a question that no matter how many academic definitions we gather, something about religion remains elusive, transcending neat categories and defying simplistic explanations. Yet, let's give it our best shot. At its most fundamental level, religion is a set of beliefs and practices that connect individuals or communities with a reality they consider sacred, transcendent, or deeply meaningful. For some, that sacred reality might be a personal god or pantheon of deities. For others, it's the cosmos itself, the laws of nature, or an unnamed spiritual essence that pervades all things. And still, others find it in the shared human pursuit of morality, justice, or inner peace, even without a reference to a deity at all. A religion typically starts with a worldview, a grand story or explanation about existence, where we come from, why we're here, and where we might be going. These beliefs can be conveyed through sacred texts, oral traditions, or the day-to-day teachings passed down through families and communities. But religion doesn't stop at belief. Faith wants to take shape in the real world. That's where ritual ceremonies and spiritual disciplines come in, whether it's meditation, prayer, singing hymns, lighting candles, or yes, even bowing to a gnome. These practices serve as lived expressions of devotion. They help people experience the sacred instead of just thinking about it. Often, religion brings people together. Through communal worship, shared celebrations, and moral guidelines, people find a sense of belonging. This social dimension can be as large as a worldwide fellowship or as small as a circle of friends. For many believers, the community aspect is as important as any doctrine. It's a spiritual family that offers support, accountability, and a collective mission. At the heart of it all is a recognition that there's something, call it the divine, the mystery, or the ultimate truth, that deserves our awe and reverence. Even in secular or philosophical traditions, there's a reverence for life itself. human potential, or universal compassion. Wherever we locate the sacred, it beckons us to look beyond the surface of daily life and find meaning in something greater. Religion is as diverse as humanity itself. Think of it as a polytheistic pantheons of ancient... What the fuck did I just say? Religion is as diverse as humanity itself. Think of the polytheistic pantheons of ancient civilizations, the monotheistic traditions that shape modern society, the spiritual practices of indigenous cultures, and the emerging faiths that blend old and new. Some religions emphasize strict doctrine, while others are more fluid and experiential. There are faiths that revolve around a single holy text, and those that spread their teachings through stories, songs, or symbolic art. Contrary to what some might assume, religions aren't always theistic. There are non-theistic traditions, like certain schools of Buddhism, that focus on philosophical insights and ethical living more than a personal creator, God. Meanwhile, modern spiritual movements may embrace cross-cultural influences, technology, and science, all under the banner of seeking deeper truth. This beautiful variety reminds us that religion is not a one-size-fits-all. It evolves as societies evolve, reflecting the changing needs, hopes, and fears of each generation. Because religion speaks to our deepest values and identities, it can be an incredible force for unity, compassion, and moral progress. Hospitals, schools, and countless charities owe their origins to religious compassion. Rituals can bring individuals together to celebrate life's milestones, births, weddings, initiations, passages into adulthood, and mourn life's losses. But religion also has a shadow side, when wielded irresponsibly. History is full of conflicts fought in the name of faith, leaders who manipulate devotion for power, and systems that force conformity. When people lose sight of the core spiritual aspirations and focus solely on authority or dogma, religion can become an instrument of control rather than liberation. Now, if you're listening to Gnome Talk, you likely have an interest in this unique blend of spirituality, humor, and communal exploration that we call the Church of Gnome. One might ask, does a love of gnomes and a set of playful rituals qualify as a religion? The answer depends in part on the definition we've just explored. Do we have shared beliefs or ideals? Yes. The Gnomean principles guide us towards personal growth, harmony with nature, and respect for the mystery of existence. Do we have rituals or symbols? We have the gnome hat bow and other ceremonies that encourage reflection and community, and our fondness for pointy hats, which I know I'm not wearing at the moment, but it's really cold in here, so I'm wearing a beanie. And so the Church of Gnome finds its sacred dimension in the recognition that life can be rich in meaning if we remain curious and open, grounded yet imaginative. We're not here to replace existing faiths or dictate a strict dogma. Rather, we offer a space where people from any background can gather to reflect, question, and grow. In this sense, we stand alongside many forms of religion as one more expression of humanity's boundless quest for understanding the profound questions of life. Perhaps the single best way to define religion is to see it as a conversation, one that spans millennia and connects countless voices. It's a dialogue between the past and the present, tradition and innovation, earthly concerns and heavenly aspirations. In every culture, people have come together to ask, why are we here? What should we do? How do we cope with the suffering or celebrate joy? The answers have varied, and the conversation continues. From the vantage point of the Church of Gnome, we step into this grand conversation with a particular emphasis on creativity, kindness, and a dash of irreverent fun. We believe that no matter how serious the questions we face, there's always room for laughter and that laughter itself can be a gateway to profound truth. When someone asks what defines a religion, you can say it's about belief, practice, community, and the recognition of something sacred. It's about discovering our place in the greater story, however we choose to tell it, and whether that story includes ancient scriptures, complex theologies, or tiny statues in a garden. What matters is that it guides us to live with purpose, connection, and compassion. Religion at its best is an invitation to ponder what lies beyond the horizon of our everyday thoughts, to reach out to others with empathy and understanding, and to find hope in a vast and mysterious universe. And if we can do that while tipping our hats to a gnome, maybe we're on to something truly special. So next, we're going to venture into the delicate space that separates a healthy religion from a destructive cult. It's a boundary that has puzzled historians, theologians, and ordinary seekers throughout human history. My aim is not to single out any particular tradition, but rather to illuminate the traits that can keep spiritual communities vibrant, life-giving, and respectful of personal autonomy. When I say cult, certain alarming images may come to mind. Leaders demanding unquestioned loyalty. Obviously, none of you should ever question me. That's besides the point. Isolating members from their loved ones or using fear and shame to maintain control. Just listen to me. Only me. If anyone in your friends or family are saying that you should not listen to me, they're crazy, stay away from them and just listen to me. But reality can be more nuanced. Some groups might not appear sinister on the surface, yet still employ manipulative tactics behind a friendly facade. In contrast, a healthy religion, whether ancient or newly formed, tends to celebrate openness, growth, and the sovereignty of each member's body and mind. Beliefs, however deeply held, are not forced upon individuals. They are explored through dialogue, mutual respect, and the genuine freedom to disagree or even depart. So, key hallmarks of a healthy religion could include leaders or elders that welcome inquiry, seeing it as a pathway to deeper understanding rather than a threat. Decisions are made collaboratively or through clearly defined processes, and leaders are not above scrutiny. The collective thrives by not subduing the individual, but by uplifting each person's unique gifts and perspectives. And people are encouraged to discover and express their faith journey rather than conform under compulsion. Now, cults, on the other hand, often prioritize control over curiosity, uniformity over unity. This might manifest through a charismatic or authoritarian leadership where one individual or a small group wields unchecked power. Typically, there's little room for independent thought, and questioning the leader or doctrine is discouraged or often punished. So some defining features that make stuff a cult, which we are not. We are not a cult. You can trust me. I'm not making this episode to make it seem more likely that we're not a cult. Trust me and just believe me. Anyways, psychological manipulation. So leaders will often use guilt, fear, or social pressures to keep members in line. They'll do isolation tactics, so members might be encouraged or coerced to cut ties with friends, family, or external influences, making them more dependent on the group. Unquestioned allegiance. There's little tolerance for personal boundaries or the sovereignty of each member's mind and body. And information control. Dissenting viewpoints are censored, and knowledge that conflicts with the group's teachings is often demonized. When these strategies take hold, it's easy for an insular world to form, a world where questioning is seen as betrayal and loyalty is maintained through fear rather than genuine conviction. This isn't just a theoretical issue. History is filled with examples of Spiritual communities that began with noble intentions, or didn't, but lost their way as leaders became more fixated on power than on guiding people towards truth. So cults and religions can share many superficial traits, rituals, charismatic leaders, strong communal bonds. So how do we know whether a group is a haven of spiritual growth or a hotbed of manipulation? Here are 3 questions that you can ask yourself if you're thinking about whatever group that you're in or considering joining. Am I free to leave without fear of retaliation or spiritual condemnation? Are my questions and doubts embraced as an opportunity for shared learning? Do I retain the right to direct my own life choices, my health, my relationships, my financial decisions without control from leadership? If the answer to any of those is no, then you might be stepping into a more restrictive environment than you bargained for. The truth is, many organizations start out harmless and even beneficial, but as they grow, unchecked authority can steer them towards cultic behaviors. That's why vigilance, accountability, and individual sovereignty matter. No spiritual community is automatically immune. So, jokes aside, here at the Church of Gnome, we take these concerns deeply to heart. And that's why the Gnomean principle of sovereignty of body and mind is so central to our faith. We recognize that each individual has the right and, in fact, the responsibility to govern themselves. Your body, your mind, and your consciousness are yours alone. No person or institution should wrest that autonomy from you. From the earliest days of making the Church of Gnome, I understood that it was crucial to put safeguards against potential misuse of power. My inner paranoia was that this would evolve to something way beyond anything I had ever thought of, and I wanted to make sure that in the very foundation of it, things were put in place to prevent it from becoming another tool of abuse. So I also made the doctrine of anti-cult awareness and prevention, laying out clear guidelines that protect everyone's freedom. So we encourage respectful debate and questioning. Disagreements aren't just tolerated, they're welcomed as signs of an engaged and thoughtful membership. Leadership roles are accountable to the community. Decisions about resources, teachings, and organizational direction are open to scrutiny. We do not condone or practice isolation, secrecy, or emotional manipulation. Any attempt to undermine a member's personal relationships or independence is directly opposed to this doctrine. And I'm trying to make it so we are actively teaching about cult awareness by recognizing the tactics of manipulation, whether they come from outside groups or even from within. We can address potential problems before they take root. And I'm hoping that the Church of Gnome does become a resource to help people get out of cults or help people realize if they're in a cult. And then maybe if they want, join our not a cult. So the Gnomean principle of sovereignty of body and mind, it is not just a fancy phrase, it's a protective shield for the spiritual journey. Historically, religion has been used and tragically misused to justify coercion and oppression, but each person upholds the principle of sovereignty. The capacity for abuse shrinks dramatically. So personal autonomy, we need you govern your own health decisions, your own spiritual beliefs, your own lifestyle choices. And while each person is free, that freedom must never infringe upon another's. This creates an environment where everyone's autonomy is honored. And when we collectively embrace sovereignty, we also take responsibility for calling out manipulative behaviors. In doing so, we protect one another and preserve a community culture that celebrates integrity. So imagine a world where spiritual organizations championed personal freedom just as passionately as they champion their beliefs, where the leader is simply a fellow traveler guiding exploration, not a tyrant dictating truth. That's the vision I'm striving for within the Church of Gnome. A space that nurtures faith while remaining vigilant against any sort of control. Unless it's my control. Or mind control. My control over minds. None of that. None of that. Ultimately, a religion can be a source of beauty, unity, and profound meaning. It can nurture relationships, foster inner growth, and inspire acts of compassion, but it can only do these things sustainably if it respects the autonomy of its members. And that's why I stand by our anti-cult stance, spelled out so clearly in our doctrine, and also listed at the top header of our website that we're definitely not a cult. We want the Church of Gnome to remain a flourishing garden of ideas, a place where gnomes and humans alike can celebrate life's mysteries without fear of hidden agendas or heavy-handed rule. By upholding the sovereignty of body and mind, we ensure that our faith, no matter how it grows and evolves, never loses sight of the dignity of each soul who calls this community home. All right, everyone, take a deep breath. We're going to be diving into some heavy stuff. Get ready for politics. Nothing like religion and politics. The conversations that keep every family together and never cause any issues. So we're going to turn our gaze to how political movements and various ideologies can sometimes slip into our lives with the intensity of religious faith. And I'm not here to advocate for any particular side. I wrote this episode out to remain neutral. That's not what the Church of Gnome is for, and it will never be anything political. So I'm aiming to explore the underlying dynamics that can transform political or ideological devotion into something that looks, acts, and often feels like spiritual creed. So you've probably noticed how certain political groups resemble religious congregations. They might have unmistakable symbols, flags, slogans, or a particular color scheme, similar to how religions have sacred icons. Rally chants echo the call and response nature of liturgy. Speeches can become sermons, and loyalty to a cause sometimes borders on absolute devotion. And just like a devout believer who clinges to core doctrines, people can develop unshakable beliefs in a party platform or ideological stance. This sense of unwavering certainty can galvanize communities to unite for a cause, but it can also sow deep division when everyone else is labeled as unbelievers or heretics. Dogma isn't inherently negative. It can unite individuals around shared values, yet when dogma becomes rigid and unquestionable, it can stifle dialogue and polarize communities. Much like religious conflicts of the past, political rivalries can escalate and leave no room for nuance or empathy. Instead of sharing a sense of collective purpose, people may be driven by an us versus them mentality. When politics or ideologies become all-consuming, we risk losing the freedom to question, reflect, and evolve. If a charismatic figure or a set of ideas demand uncritical devotion, where doubt is seen as betrayal or moral failing, the parallels that cultic tendencies we discussed earlier. So campaign merchandise, repeated slogans, ritualistic events can mimic religious gatherings where each gathering reinforces group identity. In some corners, disagreeing with the group's stance becomes an unforgivable sin. The ability to engage in healthy skepticism or critique fades, replaced by social penalties or ostracism. If loyalty hinges on labeling others as the enemy, communities fracture, common ground is lost in the noise of what's right versus wrong, or right versus left for the matter of that, true believers versus outsiders, or any stark binary that leaves no room for dialogue. Of course, there's nothing wrong with caring deeply about issues that affect society. Passion can fuel meaningful change. The issues arise when passion tilts into blind faith, making it nearly impossible to engage in honest, open-minded conversation. So, how do we apply a Gnomean lens to this swirling cauldron of political fervor and ideological intensity? The Church of Gnome maintains that no single belief system, be it political or otherwise, should consume a person entirely. Our sovereignty of body and mind principle extends to the realm of political and ideological thought as well. We retain the right to question, evolve, and to sometimes say, I don't know yet, without fear of condemnation. So here's some practical ways to stay balanced and open. So stay curious. Just as a gnome stands quietly observing its surroundings, we can observe multiple perspectives without rushing to judgment. Ask questions about opposing views and remain open to the possibility that no side has all the answers. Practice self-reflection. Monitor how you feel when confronted with contrary opinions. If anger and hostility flare up in you at the mere mention of a different stance, it might be time for you to take a step back and look a little bit deeper inside yourself. And engage respectfully. Even in moments of strong disagreement, remember that each person has their own history and reasons for holding their beliefs. Civility and empathy go a long way in bridging divides. And preserve autonomy. Never relinquish your agency to a leader, party, or ideology. Maintain the courage to say no when something doesn't align with your ethical or spiritual values. We often say in the Church of Gnome that humor can diffuse even the most tense exchanges, no matter how serious the debate. A lighthearted or well-placed laugh can remind us of our shared humanity and the reality that none of us has a monopoly on truth. So, politics and ideologies can highlight real issues we collectively need to address. It's vital for communities to remain engaged, advocate for what they believe in, and strive for positive change. Yet, the Church of Gnome encourages us to do so without losing sight of individual sovereignty and the importance of genuine human connections. We are reminded of a few fundamental questions. Does this political stance bring us together, or does it tear us apart? Are we fostering dialogue or shutting it down? Can we hold firm beliefs while still respecting others? At the end of the day, even the most fervent ideologue is still a person, just like you, seeking security, understanding, and purpose. Recognizing that common ground can prevent political dogma from becoming an all-encompassing faith in disguise. So the purpose of highlighting this faith in disguise is not to condemn politics or dismiss the importance of social engagement. Rather, it's a reminder that the qualities we typically associate with religion, devotion, ritual, doctrine can emerge anywhere humans direct their deepest convictions. Our tasks as Gnomians is to maintain a sense of balanced awareness. By applying our principles of mutual respect, personal sovereignty, and humble curiosity, we can engage passionately in political or ideological spaces without slipping into rigid dogma or harming our connections with each other. In other words, we stay rooted in our shared humanity and the simple joy of learning together. Like a row of gnomes standing side by side, each with its own style of hat, yet united by a sense of collective purpose. So I want to also touch on science. Now, if you know the Gnomean principles, you know the Church of Gnome is a big fan of science and looking for the truth through that lens as well. But science itself, some people treat it like a form of religion. So traditionally, science and religion are framed as opposites, one grounded in empirical data, the other in faith or transcendent experience. But if we look more carefully, there are moments when the scientific enterprise takes on some religious like qualities. So, devotion to principles. Many people hold unwavering confidence in the scientific method, placing immense trust in studies, peer reviews, and experts. Much like religious doctrines, scientific frameworks can become dogmatic if they're never questioned or re examined. Scientific conferences, publications, and review processes can resemble ceremonial gatherings where participants validate or challenge each other's findings. There's even a form of liturgy in how papers are structured and how experiments are replicated. Science addresses phenomena we don't fully understand: dark matter, quantum entanglements, the origins of consciousness. Some approach these frontiers with a reverent kind of wonder akin to a spiritual quest. However, just as dogmatism can harm religious communities, it can also stifle scientific progress. When people become so attached to established theories or known facts that they can dismiss new or contradictory evidence, science itself suffers. Dogmatic thinking can discourage pioneering research, silence minority viewpoints, or disregard anomalies that might lead to groundbreaking discoveries. A truly healthy scientific community remains open to being proven wrong. Openness to new evidence, even if it shatters long-standing paradigms. It's what keeps scientific inquiry alive and innovative. And at the Church of Gnome, we admire that spirit of exploration. We believe curiosity and humility should guide us, whether we're delving into cosmic mysteries with a telescope or reflecting on our personal journey in a quiet moment of meditation. So whether it's the blurred line between science and dogmatic belief, the all-consuming nature of certain hobbies, or the tension between solemn reverence and lighthearted humor, religion in its broadest sense can show up in many forms. The Church of Gnome suggests maintaining a stance of gentle curiosity. Stay open to being proven wrong, cultivate passion without letting it consume you entirely, and keep humor in your spiritual toolkit to stay grounded in the face of life's grand mysteries. So thank you for joining me today in this episode of Gnome Talk. We've explored what defines religion, the fine line between faith and cult, and the surprising ways that politics and ideologies can take on religious traits. So these are big topics, but they all circle back to a simple truth: the importance of balance, openness, and honoring our shared humanity. If today's episode resonated with you at all, I invite you to take a journey with the Church of Gnome. Become part of our community. It's easy and free and filled with opportunities for connection, laughter, and growth. We are in 22 countries now. Pretty frickin' awesome. So join us at churchofgnome.org. Learn more about what we stand for. Engage with other fellow Gnomians in our private Facebook group. And you can support the mission by getting our membership certificates, our ordainment packages, getting some of these sweet gnomes that I make, or the merchandise, all sorts of sick gnome merch. So, thank you everyone, and I'd like to leave you with a Gnomean proverb that ties together much of what we've discussed today. A mind rooted in curiosity blossoms with truth. A heart tempered with humor flourishes in peace. May we all strive to embrace that blend of curiosity, openness, and lightheartedness as we navigate life's mysteries. Thank you for being here and for contributing to this vibrant spirit of the Church of Gnome. We're honored to have you as part of our growing community, and until next time, Gnome blessings.